Hey everybody, Cast Talks here, and today this is a little bit different than my normal videos. Today is more of an instructional video, hence the new intro that's just for instructionals. If you see that, if you're not a modder, this video is not for you, and you probably won't get much out of it. So if you are a modder and you do want to learn some kind of animation or something like that, I'm going to show you really quickly with the help of two plugins, a website to get you started. Initially, what I do normally, or what I did, is I started off with a bunch of pre-made animations, and then I went into editing the animations that were already in the game, and then ultimately making my own. So, with that being said, you need Blender to do this. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the nonsense that you get from a brand new one. I'm going to minimize. So I'm going to go to the website. The first plugin you want is right here, PDX Blender Tools, and I'm going to put the links in the description. Here it is, Ross G, a very amazing person. Without him, I couldn't do 90% of the stuff that I do. PDX Blender Tools is amazing. I guess there's tools for other programs, but I use Blender, so this is what I do. You go here and you download the code, just like that. It is a plugin. If you're unfamiliar with plugins and how to install them, I'll briefly go over it. The second plugin you're going to want is this Rokoko Studio Live Blender. You can get this and you download it the same way. They both give you zip files. And so then you go back into Blender, and then what you want to do is you go into your edit, preferences, install, find the .zip file or whatever, and then hit install, and then add the plugin. So I already have them inside of here. So when you're looking for where they are at, they're right here. They'll be up on the side here on this toolbar. So I have quite a few different ones, but these are the only two you'll need to get started. So PDX Blender Tools right here. This allows you to load meshes, load animations, save meshes, and save animations. In addition to creating PDX materials and all that stuff, I don't think you really need. There's no login for that. Just download this. The second one, Rokoko, you will need a login. This will be a login. There's an update available. Okay. So I just updated it. So there's a update. You'll log in here. It's completely free. Same with Mixamo, free. And you just got to put your email in there. So moving on, those are installing those two plugins, and I'll go over what they do. So first thing I want to do is I want to go into my PDX Blender Tools, and I want to load a mesh. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the regular game, the game directory. It's already here because I'm already kind of messing with stuff. And let me go out all the way to the game folder. Okay, yeah. So graphics, right? And then I want to go into models, portraits, and then find out what you want to do. I normally do male bodies first, and then I go and then I mix them with the female ones first. So male body, and make sure these already should be selected. If they're not, select them. Hit the male body, import, and you're looking at feet. So right off, you're seeing it here. You'll see these little dots. These little dots are actually bones, and that's known as the rig. This body here is actually known as the mesh. So that is the male body mesh. And what you want to do is you select the male body mesh, and then control, and then hit the rig so that you're selecting both of these. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit Control P, and you'll see these right here, parent 2. You know you did it right when you see with automatic weights. If this doesn't automatically come up, because sometimes it will not come up for some reason, you just go to Edit, and then go back to Object, hit Control P, and then hit with automatic weights. So now you have one mesh and one rig, and they're all joined together. So what Control P does is basically merge the two together. You have your mesh and you have your rig. So now you're ready. So what you can do is, initially what I started to do was I loaded an animation and I went into the game folder and then picked an animation and then manually modeled it to what I wanted. But then I found this amazing site. I made a video on it before, but I was a complete novice when I was doing it. I gotta tell you, up until I just started learning, I think last July. I've learned so much since then. But I made a video about it like a month into learning, which is pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I didn't know how to do animation just a couple months ago, and then I did. So that's that. So that brings me to Mixamo. My last video, I called it Mixamino for somewhere. I have no idea where that N came from. There's not even an N in there. It's pretty embarrassing when I see the video. So yeah, so you'll see here. If you don't see it here, what you'll see is you'll see a login page, completely free. Completely free, hundreds of animations that you can use. It's all free. So just log in with your email. I think you can use, if you have a Gmail, if you have an Adobe account, you can use your Adobe account. And I think you could just sign in with regular email. So then that brings you to this. Don't pay too much attention to the actual characters. You can change this character to whatever you want. It's just this is just a normal person. And you click here and you start looking through all your animations to find one that is a weird one. So find an animation that you want to do. Hey there, much older and wiser Castox here. So yeah, I'm gonna go with this pose, and I'm just gonna show you why I was foolish a little bit ago, and I said that you should use Mixamo. Although it is a great resource for animations, there's a few things wrong with it. So there's a few things that you have to do in order to use the animations. Some of the biggest reasons why not to use it is the rig itself, the Mixamo rig, does not have twisting bones, i.e. a deltoid, a calf muscle, a high thigh bone. So it causes issues when you're retargeting. So for right now, I'm just going to go over this real quick. This is just to make it faster. This is arm space. It just adjusts. So I'm trying to get like in a nice A pose, because they have no A pose. They have a T pose. They don't have an A pose. Most of the stuff inside CK3 is default idle is the A pose. So you can trim how many frames you want it. Right now it's set to 180. We're going to leave it at 180. And then what we're going to do is we're going to download without the skin and just leave the frames alone, 30 frames per second, and just hit download. It's taking way longer than it normally does. Okay. So getting back to where we were, I'm going to point out a few things. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the FBX that I just downloaded. And that was standing idle. And right away you'll see, if you don't see it, it's because it imports very small. You can change this in the settings, but it's just easier to press S and scale it up to where I need it to be. So I'm just going to scale it up right around there. Then I'm going to grab this and kind of move it over so we can go over some of the talking points of the actual rig itself. So just going over this one, you'll notice here, as I go into pose mode, that these bones you have here, you'll need to retarget over to what the PDX rig is. So you'll notice left hand, then you have a forearm bone, then you have a left arm, and then you have a left shoulder. It's quite different to the PDX rig because even though you can't see it, there's actually a bone that's a shoulder bone, and there's a deltoid bone. That is a twisty bone. This elbow bone right here is represented on the forearm bone here, but there is no forearm bone like there is in the PDX rig over here. So anything that has to do with twisting this muscle and twisting this muscle in the arm is going to come out borked. Same thing goes with the upper thigh, the calf muscle, they just do not exist in this rig. So when you retarget the animation over, you'll get all kinds of weird behavior. And so that's why I don't really recommend it for beginners. But I'm just going to go over a few things that I can use a basic default idle, because that doesn't cause too many issues. It's really when people are twisting around and doing all kinds of crazy things that you really start to see all the different problems with the Mixamo rigs. In the advanced tutorial, what I'll probably do is I'll show you how to use another free program. Unreal Engine is probably the easiest, if you have space for it, to import into your Mixamo rig into Unreal, and then retarget it to the Unreal skeleton, and then export it, and then bring it back into Blender, and then export it to put it back in game. That is a hardcore pipeline, but if you really want that Mixamo animation, then that's what you got to do. So going over to kind of some of the things you got going on, you got a timeline here, and we noticed when we did this animation, it was 180 frames. It was down at the bottom, so make sure you have 180 frames. So that if you do have it looped, it just kind of hangs idle, and you won't have any jerking involved when you have a loop. Every single one of these things are keyframes. If you want to see which specific keyframes, you'll have to open up another window, and this took me forever to figure out. In case you guys don't know, you just kind of grab, I just did it again. You grab the side there, you hold it down, and then you do it. So if you want to see which ones exactly, you can do that with a dope sheet, and you go into the armature itself, and it'll tell you. This is super complicated, but all these different bones in every single frame and every single action that's saved within a frame. That is your dope sheet. If you want to get crazy in the advanced section, then I'll go more into the dope sheet. But right now, non-linear animation is what you really want to do, and I'll go over that as soon as I retarget it. So what I'll do now is I'll go into a Rokoko here, and I'll use my retargeter. And then you'll hit source, and you'll hit your armature, and you'll hit target, and you'll hit the target rig that you want. And then you're going to build a bone list. And that's why I say it's important to know which one it is, because you're going to have to just do it one time, really. This rig and the PDX rig, and then compare as to where you want it. That's weird that it's not in there. So here you'll notice that there's 3 spine bones and only 2. So you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta skip a bone somewhere. I think I could probably skip that bone and get away with it. Skip the middle bone. It'll throw an error if you're using the same bone twice. But yeah, just go left to right and kind of match it up. And that's why I said make sure that you look. Wow, a lot of these aren't even in there. So left hand index 1. So yeah, look at the left side, check the bone listing. Most of these are self-explanatory, like left hand, like button left finger index 2, left hand index 2. Now it makes me kind of want to look through all of these now. But yep, that's in there as well. Left front toe. No idea why these aren't in there. They should be in there. I've done this before. I haven't used the Mixamo rig in a while, but yeah. Just go and put these in there. And if you have a question, you can just always just go back out here, go into the actual, go back in object mode. Select this one, select the armature for the PDX rig, and then go bone by bone to kind of see, hey, where's this bone, where's that bone? You know, what is this bone exactly? This is the forearm bone, and then try to match it to this one. Okay, so let's go back in object mode, and I think I have it pretty much lined up here. Then leave it into the rest pose, and then hit retarget animation. You'll see these little numbers, and then you'll start to see what the result is. And the result is, of course, the bendy bones do this. So when I first started doing animation, I couldn't figure out why the hell all my fingers and my forearms and everything was jacked up. And that is the reason. When you have no point of reference for forearms, deltoids, and all the muscles that you would actually need in your body, this starts to happen. It's fine when to use Mixamo rigs if you have like a cartoony thing, but when you have a actual rig that has bones with twist bones in there, it's best to use that or go higher, but never go lower like this Mixamo rig. So what I want to do is, now that I did that, I can go to my armature that I imported, this one, and just delete it. No longer needed. So I bring up my timeline here and select the rig. And you'll see I have all those little things, all the little dots, all the little keyframes sent over to this new rig. But it looks all messed up. So what I want to do is go back over here to where I was. And then this is all the little keyframes that I have. And then what I want to do is hit this button here. So now what that did was turn all those keyframes into an action. So now you have this entire action down here. But I want to add on top of it. So what I want to do is click that there's a little arrow, go into blending, and then hit combine. Now everything that you do above on this top layer will combine with this one, meaning you can make adjustments onto the bottom by adjusting it up top. And since now I'm selected on the top layer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my frame 1. Whenever you make a change, make sure to always insert a keyframe into frame 1. That gives you like a point of reference to go back to and then end with, so that way your first frame ends where your last frame is, and you don't have a weird loop where the bone starts at a different location once the animation loops. Your first and last frame should always be the same exact position. So go into pose mode, and so now I want to click it, my shoulder here, and you notice that I clicked the deltoid. That's not what I want. I want the shoulder. These are too close together, literally behind each other. So make sure that you grab the shoulder and not the deltoid. So what I want to do is I want to bring this out some, and I want to bring it forward. So that's there, and now that that's there where I want it I just kind of hit the I key. While my mouse is over here, I hit I, and then I want to save the location, rotation, and scale. And then I want to do the same thing over here. I want to bring it out a little bit. And then move it forward a little bit. Save location, rotation, and scale. There's a little few things going on with the legs, and I'll show you what to do there. So now that I have there, what I want to do is I want to hit play. And now you'll notice that because I saved the keyframe here on the on action that's over here on this left side, I saved the keyframe and it's above my entire action. This takes precedence. So the muscles that I saved the keyframe on will combine. Everything else pretty much stays the same, but it'll morph to where I want it. So now my arms are like this. So now, as you can probably tell, there's another thing that I want to mess with, and it is the leg. Why the legs? It's always the legs. Why? Because of the twisting bones. On the Mixamo rig, you do not have twisting bones. So you need to twist those bones yourself. The calves, the thighs, the forearms, the deltoids. These will be your biggest issues. So what I want to do is I happen to know that the button leg skirt 2 control is really the IK controller for the calf muscle. So you want to just move this forward and then just maybe move it a little bit this way. And then there you go, and then save it there. And then this right hand side, the button right skirt 2, in case you're curious, button right skirt, this is the right. Skirt 2 is really just like calf muscle controller. Skirt 1 is the thigh controller. So just move it on over. And that one looks fine. So I saved it there too. Yeah. So I hit play. Looks good. So on and so forth. Alright, so that's how you kind of fix someone. I picked a real easy animation. As you can tell, the fingers just a little bit too weird. They get weirder as you have clenched fists. And it all comes down to the sleeve bone and the forearm bone not being present when you retarget. That'll be your biggest issue. You can do more complex things, such as what I recommend is actually importing a default animation from the game itself and just editing that to what you need to do. But let's say, for instance, you want to bring it a little bit forward. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to grab this elbow bone and kind of go forward, up a little bit. And put out a little bit. And I'm doing everything on frame 1. Just for reference there. Grab this. Rotate it just a little bit. Maybe like he's talking or something. And just kind of tweak the fingers a little bit. This person talks with their hands. So yeah, a little bend there. You want to be careful not to bend too much. But yeah, so let's say this person is going like that. You see, he's talking, he's moving his hands. Maybe he's moving his hands too much. What you can do, now I'll do that in the advanced version, but yeah. So, but let's say this person is moving his hands up frequently or whatever. So now we have a point of reference here. I'm going to grab this, control copy it, and send it all the way to the back because I'm going to do more changes. If you see a solid line, that means the animation does not change for 180 lines. So that movement that you actually saw in this hand is not associated with this bone, but more likely associated with the deltoid or the shoulder. So don't kill yourself trying to figure out why. If you set an animation there, that means this is not moving, literally not moving. What's moving it is either the wrist, the shoulder, the forearm, or something else, not this. So, however, let's say you do want it to move, right? And let's say he's coming forward, back a little bit. And move it a little bit here. And so now, it's a bit of a long animation. So he starts off low and then he moves up high. And then gradually he'll go from being high all the way back down to low. But let's say he's a fast talker and you want it to do something like, add it there, right? Let's Control Z that. So now he's moving his hand a little bit more. Yeah, like explaining something. Yeah, so basically, when you're gonna make an animation for a movement, what you want to do is you want to have a base and then set the end, and then where you want it, and then all the movements that you want to make. But no matter what you do throughout this entire movement, make sure it ends back here, so that way you don't have a funky animation. So this guy's like this. You gotta always add something different here. Let's say he wants to go super up high here, right? So he's just like doing that, and he'll gradually start to straighten out towards the end. There you go. Almost like he's motioning for himself. But yeah, these are like the very basics of what you want to do, bone by bone. Ultimately, what you would actually do is have a rig and have a rig with an IK controller on there, and that is a little bit different. So, like I said, well, here's what I'll do. Let me save this as something else. And then let me go into a new, just to kind of show you the difference. Just delete all the stuff that's inside here. So Shift A, and then what I want to do is I want to add a mannequin. Let's just, do I have a, yeah, I think I have a Mr. Mannequin. Yeah. So this is what an actual rig looks like for animating, one that you want to animate in. And this is just a Mr. Mannequin. If you guys don't know, Mr. Mannequin is a free plugin that they have for Blender. That basically has an Unreal character, but it has all the rigging animations that you could possibly need to do some stuff. The biggest advantage to having something like this is, let's say, for instance, you want to move something like, let's see, just like that. So these rigs actually have movement bones. Let's say the red one, the red one is a moving bone. The yellow is a moving bone. Looks like the greens are twisty bones. But let's say you grab it and you move it, it moves the entire rig with physics, so that you don't have to go through and actually move every single bone. So that's the good about having an actual rig that rigs to everything. And you can do this. So the best thing that I would recommend to do is actually making an animation inside of a rig, and then on top of that, like, blast off. Making an animation inside of a rig, and then just retargeting that over to the PDX mannequin. It's a lot easier than trying to create your own PDX rig for animation, because I promise it's not going to be as cool as this rig. Or any other rigs that I've seen that are pretty cool. So yeah, basically you just make the animation and then you retarget it over. The Mixamo one is probably the hardest one to do, because of the less bones. But as you get more animations, they're just quicker to do, and as long as you have a standard skeleton, and the Epic skeleton, the Unreal skeleton, are all standards, I would say, as far as like making games that are out there. As long as you have those skeletons, this source and targeting is not really going to affect you too much. It's going to be pretty easy to do once you do that. But like if you do have a rig, all you would have to do is just go through and then save this animation, and then export the FBX and then import it just the way we did with the Mixamo ones. So let me go back to this guy here. Let me finish. Okay, so now you're here at 180, and then we created this animation. So now let's say you want to import it into the game. So all you have to do is just make sure your rig is selected and that you're in object mode. And then what you're going to do is come over to the PDX Blender Tools and then hit Save Animation. And then just type whatever animation you want. I don't remember what this... Oh, this is for some chandelier drop thing. But yeah, just go into any mod really, and let me see. I think this one has graphics, models, portraits. This is a male body, so I'll use male body. And yeah, just to do test 22, just in case there's a test already in there. So you just hit export and then done. Now you have your animation. It runs 180 frames long, and he's doing this weird arm thing way too fast. But yeah, that's just kind of quick manipulation of bones and how to do that. If you want to get to complex stuff, I'll probably go over that in the advanced tutorial. Yeah, so now let me go into actually bringing it into game after you've exported the animation. Okay, so now I'm over here where I actually saved it. Here's my test 22 animation, and I am inside the male body. So what you want to do is, that sounded weird. Yeah, you want to go into the male body asset, and then from there, let me bring that over here. Male body asset. Okay, so yeah, let's there's a couple portions to this. I think two really. I hate when they do this. So why did you throw this over here? Ugh. Anyways, so there's the PDX mesh and the PDX entity. Every 3D asset has an entity that matches to the PDX mesh. So inside the mesh, you have the things like the additive animation and stuff like that for the body types and whatnot. But here you'll have the actual animations. This just happens to be another mod that I was just working on, so I just threw it in here really quickly. And here, yeah. So what I did was I actually have this here. And so what I'll do is I'll just copy one of these that I did. And then what I'll do is I'll just call this test 22 body, and then I called it test22.anim. That's what I saved it inside of the folder. So basically you just need this animation ID test body 22. So now that it's actually in the body, then I go to the entity and I kind of do the same thing here and kind of copy the state here. And this one I want to do differently. So this one, I called it test 22 body, didn't I? Oops. So this one I'll call it, I don't know, body test 22. Test 22. So yeah, so I have the state here. The state is when I call this state body test 22, it's going to play animation test 22 body, and I want it looping. And after it loops, I want it to go right back to itself here. And so it'll continuously play this animation in a loop state. So that is pretty much it for the body asset. You save the body asset there. So after that, I hop over to my portraits inside the GUI, shared, and then just make your own whatever portrait GUI, and then make your own type. If you have any questions as to why, you can copy this or copy what's inside the game right now for the default portraits. Make your own portrait. So yeah, this is This is my witch mod, so I just kept it inside here. It doesn't really matter what this is called. And then type 22, because that's the name of the portrait that I want it to be called. Test 22, not type. Put your stuff the way you want it. And then the portrait texture. So this would be the environmental lighting. This is the camera, and this is the pose. You can use a default camera, which is like a camera body or overview or whatever. If you have any, you can locate the cameras here under Green, Graphics, Portraits, Cameras, and in Portrait Cameras. These are all the default ones that you can use. And then just change them how you want to be best displayed. I kind of created this one here for this one about how I want it to look inside here. So that's the camera I'm using, my MV Cam 3. It's zoomed out because I want it the whole body, and yeah. So so the portraits. So yeah, you do the portrait. I made the portraits, and then from there, I made sure that I made the camera, and after I made the camera, I made the pose. So inside of graphics, portraits, portrait animations, you just make your own .text, whatever you want, and then just make your own pose. So here I have test 22 pose. I just copied the default one and then just changed it to everything is set to male. So all using one animation. But what you'll want to do is do female for female, and then girl female, and then boy male. So for the default one, the male, I put this one and just put the paranoia entry. I just use a random head animation. And then for torso, where I did here is inside the male body asset, I used the body test 22 state inside the entity. So I'm using body test 22, and this is just the default. And then this one, and I just put a random thing on there to add. I could just add 100, but I just didn't want to mess with this too much. So I have my pose. These are all pretty basic to do. You just have your pose. If you want to have different poses or different changes, you can change it depending on variable or flag inside here. Just remove this and put whatever you want. Or I can just delete this, and 100% of the time the person will do this, the default. But let's say you have a default animation, but you also have sub animations. You want to add them all in here, and then just change it depending on flag or variable or whatever you want inside of here, and then just keep adding, and then make sure you put the modifier in there so that you know to add to the weight. But for right now, this is just whatever, pose 22. So that right there corresponds to the test GUI. So right here, what I did was, if you go inside the GUI debug, you'll see a test GUI.GUI. It's basically that. You'll see this. This is what you'll see. And then I just added a button to delete, to close this GUI, and then I added test 22, parent in the center. And for the data context, I want it to be the player. Or you can do whatever data context you want. So test 22. So test 22, right, corresponds to my portrait. Test 22 corresponds to the environment that I want them in, the camera that I want them in, and the test 22 pose, the pose that I want them in. So that corresponds to the pose here. And this pose dictates what animation I'm going to use. So right there I have what animation I'm going to use, what camera angle, look angle I want, what environment that I want them, i.e. the lighting, and so on and so forth. And then the sizes are right here for the sizes of the window and the size of the actual character. And then, and then I just put test 22 inside here. So now it's paired to the default. And so minimize this And so I'm into the game here. So from here, that's my character, and I can just bring up the debug menu and then just hit the test window. And there you go. So this is my character inside of the test window doing the animation thingy that we made. If you want to change any aspect of it, such as like anything here, like the environment, let's say I want him in a tavern, so change. I'm not going to go into environments, but yeah, you just know the environment. You can just do that. Now it looks like he's in a tavern, right? And that's just all that stuff is doable in the environments and the cameras. Maybe I'll do something on that if somebody wants it. They may not want it. Cameras, let's say you want to mess with the camera. Let's say you want the camera to go higher. What you want to do is you want to increase this middle one, increase the height of the camera. So let's just go 460, see what happens. See how he's tilted now. So if you want an effect where like they're tilted, that's what you do there. The higher the number, the more tilted it gets. And the character gets smaller because the camera goes higher. So it's just a way to kind of get them to move around into the environment that you want them in. But yeah, that's all done through the camera. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There's not too much that I can really go into that matters as far as animation goes, but there's some other things you can do, like you don't have to create like a portrait or a camera or do anything. Let's say you just want to test the animation itself, you can just go here to I don't know, go to any animation that you want to test. Let's say you want to temporarily, this is one that's it's Marshall, right? Marshall, right? Okay, yeah. If I could spell. They'll go to Marshall. So let's say the normal body counselor Marshall animation. I could have just tested it by doing test 22 inside of that and in for the body Marshall, and then it would have changed the default animation of my Marshall. Note that these body assets, any asset, right, entity, can only be changed when you reload. So if I were to change it, it would work, but I would have to reload my whole game. So you have to do it at the beginning. So that's why I make sure that I change this first. But yeah, aside from that, that would have been the quick and easy, dirty way to do it. But I kind of wanted to, just in case you didn't know, that you need to have an animation, right? Animation ID that corresponds to the entity, the type, that's 22, and then that we exported. And then in the entity, you just have to do, this is going to be your call name. You're going to loop it back to the call name, and this is going to be the animation played. And that corresponds to whatever animation you have in here. And if you're curious about different things, like you can add like items, props, all kinds of shit inside here, but that's not what I'm going over today. But yeah, that's how you would do it. This is amazing. Actually, I've learned how to do a ton of things just inside of this window itself. But yeah, that's a different class for a different time. A lot of people want more of this, and I will record the intermediate and then advanced versions. But yeah, this is pretty much from getting an animation, making it, and then exporting out here.
Well, bye.